Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaur Prabhanandi.
Sorry. Thank you so much for letting us.
How would you like to do the Q&A? I was thinking just to make it more fun and interactive, like I can go around with the board and people can pick the chit and do the questions. Something like that. Okay, I can bring the chit to you right away, unless you want to just do internally. Whatever you think is best. Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back. So now we will start with Q&A. And in the form, there was an option to add any question that you'd like to ask. But if you have not already added a question, please feel free to raise your hand later and ask. Apart from that, if you have something to ask also which you're not comfortable with, you can reach out to myself or Dinal somehow, and then let us know. We can add your question in here. So Dinal will be going around with this bowl. It has colorful chits that she worked on. And
All Dinal's questions, these are just the ones that were submitted with your registration.
and you can, so right now we'll be going with one color. So if you would like to volunteer, you can pick one yellow card from here and read the question. Okay, who would like to go first? Okay, go ahead.
Can I choose?
Yeah.
Very well.
So the reason that they're colored is I just asked them if they could categorize, put them in separate categories so we're not switching topics back and forth so much. So if the question that's asked, you have something further on the same topic, then that would be a good time to ask it.
Can we have the drum?
Everything's a drama.
Topic is trauma. Question is, the burden of responsibilities and getting triggered and unnecessary things, feeling unhappy and not satisfied in life in general, despite everything working well.
Something about triggers?
The burden of responsibilities and getting triggered on unnecessary things.
Not knowing the background makes it a little difficult, but I'm hearing there's a burden of responsibilities, which sounds like there's a lot of stress from, could be many responsibilities, and we live in a world where people who work generally have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of stress, and sometimes when you have that kind of stress and pressure in your life, you come home and that pressure can spill into your relationship and you can get easily triggered by events that might not be that significant, but because of the stress you're under, it can amplify the small event and you can get triggered. Plus, also, if you have any kind of even small t trauma in your background, that can also amplify it. So one way to deal with that is to realize, okay, if you're unhappy in the relationship, it's good that you realize that, because otherwise you could just think the unhappiness is normal and just be in that conditioned state for your entire life together, which I think Krishna expects more from us than to remain together unhappily. He wanted us to chant and be happy. So we actually have a duty to be happy. And so in this kind of situation, we need to see what I need to do to maybe reduce the stress in my life, or to be able to process the stress in my life so I don't bring it home, that I can put it down on the doorstep and come in the house and be my best self. If there is maybe some trauma that's being added in there to that mix, to be able to understand that and learn to recognize the symptoms. Like Uttama, we did this exercise about the lower self and the adaptive child. If you can learn to recognize those things, you can take charge of how you're going to react rather than be triggered. And if somehow you're not able to do that on your own, you can seek help, get counseling, and they can help you process those triggers or even the stresses that you're under in life so that they don't sabotage your relationships.
Sometimes we can get in a state where we're just in a state of anxiety. And a big part of dealing with anxiety is you can't fix it by thinking, because your mind's all upset. And we don't cure anxiety that's just going on in the mind by trying to think our way out of it. So the exercise that we had on writing the letter to your adaptive child, that can actually go a long way, and doing some kind of affirmations every day, just to be able to realize how you are coping and what you are doing well with, can go a long way. And like my husband was saying, if you're just not able to do it yourself, then you might want to get some help from someone else. It's becoming really common these days because we are all so overworked. And that will naturally make the triggers. So if there's any way that we can simplify our lives in any way, go for it. Because life is quite tough. And to learn how to manage our triggers. And we were talking about at the end, cherishing what you do have. Change your perspective. Okay. Want to do another one? We can see how the passing is going to go. I'm going to see, because usually somebody moderates these and then they can see if the question was similar, and it fit in the other one. So I don't know.
That might sound a little odd for a brahmachari, but how to get better after a heartbreak?
This is a question for the future. Well, I think they're probably referring to, it's hard to get over disappointments, especially when you get really attached to something. And usually when they say get over a heartbreak, it's somebody that you were, quite somewhat close to, and you're just seeing that it's not working out. I think what helps is to know that everybody has trouble getting over loss. Whether it's a heartbreak with a relationship or someone passing, it's not easy. And so, they always say give it time, but that is the answer. That we do need to just realize that we have to go through the process of grieving the loss. And it will get better, and it's going to take different times for different people. Some people it'll happen sooner, some people it'll take longer. And to try to do other positive things in your life, just to bring, other sorts of happiness into your life. And to, just realize, this is tough. It's okay to feel heartbroken because you had something that you were appreciating and it's gone. So we grieve the loss. It takes a while.
The topic is trauma. And the question
We're
is
getting rid of all the trauma ones first.
fear of abandonment and triggers. It's not a question, I don't.
Yeah, well, when people have experienced abandonment in their life for any sort of reason, especially when they're younger or even when you're older, anything that happens in a close relationship that feels like you might get abandoned is going to create that trigger. And we learned that triggers are something where we're bringing in all the past into the present. And so that's going to be a bit ongoing until we build up trust in the relationship. So it is very essential that when you know the person well enough, that you can explain a bit about your abandonment so they are aware and they understand why you're a little bit sensitive to, showing up, not coming to prasadam when you're invited. Maybe she's got some abandonment triggers. It just helps you explain it more, and it helps you become more aware. So it's hard to be vulnerable in relationships and share the things in the past that have been hurtful. However, it's valuable information for partners to know what those triggers were so that they can be a little more understanding and even just be able to, sit down and hear what you're going through, even if they can't change it, Do you wanna add?
And again, if you understand that concept of the adaptive child, how it's becoming reactive in your adult life, and learning to discern your higher self from your lower self, you can be able to regulate your emotions so you don't get triggered by that feeling of abandonment in situations which it tends to get amplified if you can't control your lower self. So again, that can help if you consciously try to do those exercises like we described. And if that doesn't work, it'd probably be good to seek help from a professional counselor and spend some time working on that.
So if you've, usually, in the relationship grid, the people that are on the boundaryless side, they've usually experienced some kind of abandonment. And that's why they're needy for other people to come and fix it for them. So
Could you please repeat that?
it's, if you're on the boundaryless side of the relationship grid, it could be that you have experienced some abandonment, and that's why you tend to gravitate towards wanting other people to come and fix it for you, because you need that. You didn't get it before, so you're feeling that you need somebody else to come and fix it to kind of cure that abandonment feeling.
We can move on with the next category, communication.
Communication. All right. Let's talk about it.
The pink one, the light pink.
Communications. Resolving conflict, deepening connection. That's all.
So we maybe didn't explain this that fully when when we were discussing harmony, disharmony, and repair. It's kind of ironic that if you just went along in your relationship and everything was harmonious, you would feel some kind of connection. When the disharmony comes and you have to make some repair to fix it, once you've made the repair, you actually feel more connected than you did when it was just the harmony. So disharmony is, in one way, it's your friend, because it helps you work on deeper issues that keeps you more connected. So disharmony isn't something to be afraid of. If you can work through it well, you're going to find that you understand each other better and you feel more connected. And I think we've all experienced that. You have a friend and something, doesn't go well, and then you work through it, and then you have, a bigger bond of friendship.
Disharmony is actually a very good word to describe that, because if you do experience disharmony, you just have to get back in tune. You have to do some fine-tuning, and as you're continually fine-tuning, things get more and more improved as you move through your relationship. So as Uttama was saying, that your challenges and even your conflicts, they're actually not a problem. The problem is if you deal with them constructively or unconstructively. And if you deal with them constructively, you're fine-tuning your relationship, and your relationship will improve. And so they will actually serve to strengthen and improve your relationship by dealing with conflict and challenge in a harmonious way.
If we have any follow-up questions, are we accepting it right now?
They should do at the
So
same time.
if we do have any follow-up questions, please raise your hands. Okay, just that. And then, what would you like to? A light pink one.
A pink one?
A light pink.
Light pink, okay.
Okay, so someone says, I would like to discuss how two people with completely different communication styles can communicate well without things going out of hand.
Without the specifics of the difference in styles, one common difference in communication styles is how you deal with challenges and conflict. Some couples want to avoid conflict, just become like a turtle, withdraw, and totally avoid everything. Other couples tend to be more vocal, boisterous, animated, maybe loud, just want to work it out right now. So that could be on a scale of 1 to 10. And if you have different styles, generally research shows that if couples, they're relatively close on that scale, let's say they're relatively low on the scale, they're more conflict avoidant, they can have happy relationships, healthy relationships, but the only problem with the conflict avoiders is that sometimes they don't deal with problems which, if they actually dealt with and worked out, it would improve the relationship. So they kind of miss out on take the benefits of actually conflict. Those who are higher on the scale, more animated, vocal, boisterous, if there's two of them together, they can also have healthy, peaceful relationships as long as they're...
I don't know about peaceful.
Well, it'd be animated relationships. They can be happy as long as they don't demean each other when they're having their conflicts. They don't demean, criticize. Then they can also be have good relationships. If they're relatively matched, it's going to be easier. If there is quite a difference on the scale, one's quite avoidant and one's quite, we could use the word volcanic. The volcanic person is going to have to learn how to be sensitive to the more conflict avoidant partner by bringing things up slowly. And generally, that's also true between men and women. If women are going to bring something up, it's best if they bring it up with it's called a soft startup rather than start full bore. So in that sense, couples with those kind of differences, they can have healthy relationships as long as there is respect. And in terms of communication styles, communication is something you can learn. You can actually learn how to listen. Unfortunately, many of us have a communication style in which I might be having conversation with you about something we disagree on, and you might be explaining your point of view, and while you're explaining your point of view, I have a dialogue running in my head just thinking, I can actually just defeat that by saying this, and that's not right. So am I actually listening? Is that actually communication? No, it's like communication in a mode of ignorance. So you can actually learn how to very easily just take your own point of view, put it down, and I can listen to you, and I might not agree, but I can try to understand why you think that way, why you feel that way, and I can respect that, even though I don't agree. And similarly, your partner can also put aside their point of view, listen to you, understand what makes you tick, why you think that way, and honor that, even though they disagree. So we can disagree and we can be the best friends. Whereas if we don't understand each other, there's probably going to be tension in our relationship, ongoing and maybe even constant, due to the fact we don't actually properly communicate. So communication can be learned, and it's important that, if you have a hard time communicating, get some help to learn how to actually understand each other. You want to say something?
We're all going to have somewhat different styles of communication because we're different. So part of it's just being curious what helps the other person to be able to communicate better and to be able to say what you need. And sometimes when people say they have different communication styles, it's like one wants lots of information, the other doesn't want to communicate at all. So, how to explain what you need. It's, how to meet in the middle. We both have to learn. If one's a really withdrawer and the other one's just, the unbridled self-expression type, we all have to, learn to find some healthy way of communicating. And when people say, usually, if somebody comes for couples counseling, you ask them, what's the difficulty? They say, we're having problems communicating. That just means, that could mean anything under the sun. That's just what they're coming up with. However, there's probably dysfunctional dynamics going on in certain areas that you need to work on the particular behaviors and that are not working well in your dynamics. And it might seem like communication because you feel like the other person just doesn't get what you need. However, it's usually a lot deeper than just communication.
So, if the relationship is between a parent and a child, and in this case, the parent is like, they withdraw, and then they also think that they know everything, that they know better than you, so, and also they're unwilling to change or like listen to you. So, what would one do in that situation?
It's hard because the child doesn't have a lot of influence. And it's interesting how introspective children can get. They're seeing it and the parent isn't seeing it at all. So I would suggest finding some mentors that you can talk to. Because you may, like you said, the parents are unwilling to change. I have, sometimes I go into our high school and I teach kids how to find the unmet need of somebody else instead of just responding defensively, to come back with, oh, sounds like you're needing this or that. And it can very often calm down the parent. Like I had a couple kids come to me and say, oh, it's so much easier to deal with my parents now, that I know how to like listen and, reflect back what they said and make sure I got it right, and how to like, if they're upset, oh, sounds like Mom, you needed some help with this, and it was hard for you and I completely forgot. They said it was able to go a long way with helping their parents. So maybe the parents don't have the skills, but if the kids can learn some skills, it can help them cope with the situations. So.
Thank you.
That's why they should teach relationship skills in school.
How to effectively redefine boundaries in already established relationships.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking about setting the boundaries, right? And then, so you're in a relationship where the boundaries aren't there. You have to start somewhere. What can I say? You may have to actually state that. Some things, aren't quite working in this relationship. And I was wondering if you could, if I could share with you some things that aren't quite working for me, and this is what I'm going to need to set the boundary. And so I'm just like letting you know that it's not working for me and I'm going to have to set this boundary. And it's going to be hard. And we need to start sometime. But if you're really feeling the need, then it's probably a good idea to start small and work up.
And knowing your values and being able to have a clear vision of what your important values are can help you set those boundaries and help you see how significant that boundary needs to be.
So you want to understand also that a boundary is letting the other person know what you will do or not do. It's not setting a boundary that they have to do something. Because we can't change the other person. It's not that I'm setting the boundary that you have to do the dishes all the time. I'm setting the boundary that I won't be able to do dishes, you know, in the evenings. I don't know, whatever. Maybe somebody else can do them, one of the kids or something, I don't know. So the boundaries are about yourself. Just wanted to clarify that.
How to communicate better your feelings to your partner, dealing with your partner not doing the right thing. Not doing the right thing.
How to deal with the first part?
How to communicate better your feelings to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Feedback wheel.
Right. Feedback wheel. Yeah, that is a good one. Because it's succinct. Yeah. It's hard when we feel that our partner, you're thinking that they won't listen to what we're saying. So sometimes it's hard for them to hear because they don't know what kind of listening they need to do. And sometimes they don't know how long it's going to take. So when we can say, I'm wondering if I could share a few things with me, and it's my feelings, and I don't necessarily need you to do anything, but I would just like you to understand it, and it's only going to take 15 minutes. Are you willing to sit down? Because if it's like, oh, we have something we need to talk about, okay, what? And what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to fix it? Am I supposed to listen? How many hours do I have to sit here? You know, if they think it's going to be hours and hours, they're going to say, I don't have time. But if you can request how much time you need and ask them for when a good time is, and this is the type of listening I need. Because we have different kinds of ways we talk. Sometimes we're needing something. Sometimes we're, like I already said that, repeating myself, but different types of requests.
And you can also try to frame it to them in a way, especially if this is with your significant other, that I'd like to talk about this because I think this would improve our relationship, this would improve our sense of connection. So it's not just like the person's hearing that I have to change, but they're hearing that you actually want to work on the relationship. Ajit's got a question behind there.
So it seems like a lot of this requires a lot of self-awareness, and it seems like easy to be aware of, like, okay, what the other person's doing we don't like, or like how I'm feeling, but being able to be aware when I'm like stressed or something, being aware that I need X, Y, Z, or how do we become more self-aware, you know, like in terms of our own needs or things like that?
One time Srila Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness means attention to detail. So we need to be very attentive to detail and serving the deity, keeping the temple clean, very attentive when we're cooking and cleaning our house or whatever. And we also need to be attentive to our consciousness, our spiritual consciousness, just like we understand that we have this example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, how the devotees, they all went to the Gundincha Mandir to clean the temple. And they cleaned everything, swept and washed everything, and then they finished, they started over again and cleaned everything again, and then they cleaned it again. And each time they were cleaning it, they were looking for finer bits of dust and straw. And so we all have those kind of little minute particles of anarthas, unwanted things, maybe little small T traumas. And the more we can be introspective and find those little anarthas, sometimes they're compared to little weeds that grow up beside the devotional creeper we're trying to grow. And it's described even sometimes those weeds, they don't look much different than the creeper. That makes it hard. So it requires a lot of attention and detail. And I know as someone with a garden, it's quite almost mystical. Whatever plant you're trying to grow, some weed will start growing beside it that looks exactly like what you're trying to grow. And you have to be very attentive not to pull out the plant you're trying to grow. So it's like that with our consciousness. We have to kind of look deep within and just continually try clean our consciousness and clean our heart and try to identify those little anarthas and pull them out.
I could give you this. I had 2 printed. It's a feelings wheel. All you got to do is Google feelings wheels. So sometimes we don't know what we're feeling, but a good place to start is to see where we're feeling it. Stomach, chest, heart, head. That's one place. And then see if you can put a name to it. And that may be able to help you name your feelings. And it can be good just to pull up a feelings wheel or have one on your phone and learn a bit more vocabulary around feelings. Because then it's just like when you start to look for something, you start somewhere and then you keep going. It's like if you don't know what any flowers are, and you see in the spring so many flowers are up and you wonder, I wonder what kind of flower this is. Oh, this is hydrangea. Then you're going to start seeing hydrangeas everywhere. Oh, this is tulips. This is this and that. Slow down. Slow. Just by starting to look, you'll gradually find more. And I know from being a mom that we so often have to do things that are hard to do. We don't feel like doing them. We get up 3 times in the middle of the night, even though we can barely get out of bed because we're so tired because we already had 2 hours sleep. And, after a while you just shut off your feelings, so you don't know what they are. So my husband would ask me, like, well, what do you need? I go, I have no idea. Because you're just shutting them all off. So the problem is when we don't know, then we just get grumpy and we explode and get our triggers going. So it's advantageous to be a little introspective, like he's saying, and know. So that just starts with taking a few times in the day to check in, see what you're feeling, and see if you can put a name on it. Start from there.
In Srimad Bhagavatam,
and you're welcome to one of these.
Srimad Bhagavatam describes how in the age of Kali Yuga, everyone's finer sentiments become lost. And I was reading this article on emotions once, and it was describing how in the last 100 years, people's vocabulary for emotions was shrinking. They had very less words they were being used to describe emotions, which is exactly what the Bhagavatam predicted. And the emotions that are remaining tend to be more like gross emotions. And you kind of see it now, like in the age we're living, young people sometimes, if something they like it, they'll say, oh, that's really wicked. And that's kind of odd, isn't it? This is really wicked. So we tend to go to these gross emotions and not really understand the subtle things in us. So as Uttama was saying, it's helpful to develop a broad emotional vocabulary so you can identify with what you're feeling so you can process it. There was one couple in our community, they had one child who was I don't know what the term was, hyperactive, you might say neurologically divergent. And she started working with him, especially when he was learning how to read. She would take different colors of this construction paper, make little circles, and write the name of some basic emotions. So if something occurred in the house and he was getting really hyperactive, she would say, okay, just come over here, let's take a look at the fridge and tell me which emotion you're feeling here. And he would say, well, yeah, I'm not angry, not really angry, I'm just frustrated. And as soon as he realized that, he'd kind of calm down. And so that was really working for him. And then his mother was telling me that he would start coming to her and say, hey, Mom, you know what? I got another emotion. Can you write on a piece of paper and put it up there too? So he broadened his emotional vocabulary on his own and he completely transformed the kid just by broadening and developing an emotional vocabulary. because that enabled him to identify his emotions, and when you can name them, you can tame them, and it just actually transformed him. So we as adults need that, and especially men tend to be a little more emotionally shut off. And I like to tell men that the importance of developing emotions, it's very essential for spiritual life, because ultimately, in Krishna consciousness, in our theology, we are trying to develop an understanding of the full spectrum of ecstatic emotions there are for Krishna. Like if you read Nectar Devotion, it just paints this amazing picture of all the different kinds of ecstatic emotions for Krishna. And so if we don't even know how to access our own emotions, how will we ever understand these ecstatic emotions for Krishna? So developing our emotions and understanding our emotions in our relationships is actually going to assist our spiritual life. And it's a part of our spiritual life.
I think one thing we don't understand about emotions is we tend to have this vision that emotions are something that happen to somebody when they're triggered and when they go all over the place. But an emotion just means that something comes up in you and it wants to send you in motion in some direction. So if, for example, you're feeling some anger, it's an emotion that's trying to stimulate you to notice something and to be aware. And when you look at it finer, it could be you want to see, like, why am I angry? So as my husband said, you look at your wheel. You might be frustrated, you might be critical, you might be distant, you might be mad, you might feel humiliated, you might be let down. All those are so much different than just being angry. So if you're, let down, that emotion sends you in motion, so you can let the person know, we're picking on you, Vishaka. When you didn't come for dinner that day, I was really disappointed, right? So she may have started out angry that, hey, he didn't show up after I did all this work. But really, it was just, let down. She was, excited to see him and looking forward to it. So the anger, she knew how to respond. So that's the advantage of understanding our emotions, is that we know the appropriate action to take. It's not that we have to act on the emotion. It's just a signal, like the signals on your car dash. Oh, does it need oil? No, it needs gas. It's this one, right? So you see which light's blinking, and then you see what we need to do. So we don't have to be so scared of them, and it's very valuable information. So when we know more information about how the car works, it's going to stay in better running order.
Understand how to read emotions and what they're trying to tell us, as Uttama is saying. However, the problem is, in the age we live in, we tend to be victimized by emotions, and we think, I am angry. But am I angry? I'm actually a spirit. I'm a spirit soul. I'm a spirit soul. So I'm not actually angry. And actually in Old English and in some languages, they would say something like, anger has come upon me. So it's not that I'm angry. Some event has caused this feeling to come upon me that I can respond to in some manner. It's meant to put me in some motion. So it's a matter of seeing those emotions in the proper context, how they're trying to, as Uttama said, trying to send us in some direction, not that we're victimized by the emotion.
There's a second part.
Dealing with your partner not doing the right thing.
How do you deal with the partner who's not doing the right thing?
I think that's what they mean.
Yeah. You request what you need, because we can't make anybody do anything, right?
The last one, okay. Yes.
How do we ask each other what to do in bad times, instead of asking siblings or other friends and family, which can crest disputes and distance between us?
So what I'm hearing is the person, they're really hoping that their partner's going to be there for them in times of need. And that is very essential in relationships because it builds the trust. And I think if we could really understand the repercussions of not being there for someone when we're in great difficulty, it might help us to be there. We met one couple a long time ago, South Africa, and she'd had a very difficult delivery, and when the boy was born, it was in the incubator. It was too young, right? And the husband was thinking, okay, the baby's born, I can go off to the Gorpurnima festival. And he goes off with all his friends to the Gorpurnima festival and comes back a month later. No idea how hard it is to deal with a baby in an incubator, how much stress it is. You don't know if they're going to live. You know, they need a lot of care. You have to be at the hospital. And she was like, had to go through that all by herself. So here we are 7 years later, and that was still very much impacting their relationship because somehow or other he wasn't able to understand how hard that would be to go through. So I think a part of it is saying what we need, and the other is asking, do you need something? What do you need? And when we marry someone, there's this unsaid expectation that the other person is going to be there for us in times of difficulty. So it's a huge breach of trust and confidence when the other person isn't there for us in times of difficulty. And that's part of relationships. And if we're going to get into a relationship, I think we should be prepared to be there for the other person.
With that, communication, the section has ended. If anyone has a question that might fall into the same category, please let us know right now.
Why don't we just take a minute to take some questions from the audience?
Yes.
Yeah, on anything.
So often young leaders, they have challenges communicating. Those are not, of course, they are definitely the tools that they're missing, like, feedback wheel or anything like that. But also, maybe there's just something more deep-rooted, which is like, for example, they never spoke to anyone as a leader, when they were in their childhood or in their school. So if someone really wants to pursue a career of, let's say, life coach or spiritual leadership, and they're young leaders, what is that one thing would you recommend that they should start doing to communicate properly? Of course, learning these tools as well, but also having that confidence to use those
Sorry,
tools.
there's what as well?
Using those tools and the confidence as well, because
Confidence.
not necessarily everyone has that confidence to use it. So I don't know if taking a communication course is a solution, but it's clear that they're spiritual leaders or they're some sort of leaders, and very soon they'll be addressing, some of the other congregation and things like that. So
one of the things that comes to my mind is that when you're a leader, you are requesting, you're not demanding. Because as a leader, you think, I have to get all these things done, so we tell this person to do that, and this person to do this, and this person to do that. But especially in Vaishnava circles, devotional service is voluntary. So even though you volunteered to stay in the ashram and follow the rules, we still always need to be requested, not demanded. So, like I had a circumstance where, we make schedules, right? And so you make the schedule, you put everybody on it. And then they get to come back to you and say, well, actually, I had a doctor's appointment this time, I won't be able to do it. But the leader's already dumped it on that person. Well, then can you find somebody? But they haven't yet accepted it. So first we have to see if they're willing to accept it. Then once they've accepted it, yes, all of a sudden I have to go to the doctor's appointment, I'll find somebody else to, mop the floor for me that day, I can ask. So it's that requesting, just the mood of requesting instead of demanding, I think is a huge difference.
On the flip side, in some situations, maybe it's managing a business, maybe it's managing an ashram, there's certain things that need to be done. And that can be a challenge for the person who's leader, because those things must be done, because they have the ultimate responsibility. I've had experience of that as head pujari, because if there's no one else to do it, you do it, but you can't do everything. So you need to have your group that you're working with realize there's certain things that need to be done, and we need to have this agreement beforehand that we all agree to accept a certain amount of responsibility, and also agree to know that certain things are going to come up at odd times that we'll all have to step up to the plate. And I think people in the ashram or in the business, they need to be aware of that and be willing to come up to that point where they can step up and do the needful at times where it's needed. Otherwise it all falls on the person who's a leader, who can get burnt out if the people working underneath them aren't willing to step up when it's needed. That's one of the challenges of being in a leader position.
Anybody else have any questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You can always reach out.
If it comes up later, you can ask to. So we've got a couple over here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this seminar. I have a question regarding yesterday we talked about the unhealthy self-esteem and the healthy self-esteem. So there is another term called spiritual self-esteem. So how can we boost the spiritual self-esteem by using these terms?
Well, spiritual self-esteem means that's the healthiest self-esteem, to see that I'm a servant of Krishna, I'm a very unique person with unique characteristics, qualities, and unique quirks and unique weirdnesses. And everyone else around me is also a very unique spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna with unique qualities, abilities, and quirks. And to have respect for myself as a spirit soul, and also to see everyone else in that same vision. And so that's important to develop that, and that's Krishna conscious self-esteem is actually the best form of self-esteem. Actually, like Prabhupada said, without Krishna it just becomes a zero. So when we have Krishna in the center, if we actually can see Krishna as in the center, then we will see others as also of equal value. Even though we may think we're devotees, but if we see ourselves as more than others, we haven't really understood Krishna. And if we find ourselves thinking ourselves less than, we need to actually understand Krishna, that he has created us as someone who is very worthy and equal to everyone. Ajit.
Two more questions over here. There's one over there too.
Do you have a follow-up on this? Okay.
Just quickly, but it's just this morning during morning program we were reciting 12 benefits. I'm not too sure. I think it was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and one of the things we all recited together was something like "I am worthless" or something like that, like a piece of straw in the street. We all said that together. So how do we put that together? This idea of thinking that we're low, but also feeling like I'm worth of respect.
Not necessarily worthless, but it's a great statement of humility that's expressed sometimes. But in essence, what that means is we want to serve others. We want to serve rather than be served. So it's not meant to erode someone's self-esteem, but to make us realize that we're a minute particle, but everyone else is also a minute particle of Krishna. And Prabhupada described in one purport how when one realizes that, when you realize how you're a minute spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, he describes that then one becomes situated in their constitutional glory. So when you do realize your minuteness, ironically you become very great. Just like Srila Prabhupada was incredibly humble, incredibly humble. He was giving a lecture once on the importance of varnashram and importance of having Brahminical class of men in society. And then he took questions, and someone in the back stood up and said, "And I suppose you think you're one of those first-class men?" And Prabhupada's reply was, "No, I'm the servant of everyone." And the person who asked the question was just, he floored. The guy just sat down and couldn't say anything. So Prabhupada had that humility. He was a servant leader. Prabhupada was able to inspire others because everyone felt that he was giving so much care and compassion and kindness, and therefore devotees are willing to do anything for him. Although Prabhupada considered himself to be the servant of everyone.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So multiple times happens, people hurt somebody else, right? So for example, somebody hurted me, and if I try to convey that message to them, like by this behavior of you, maybe I feel hurt or I feel pain, or even sometimes the triggering kind of situation happens because of that behavior. But whenever maybe I try to convey that message, they are not maybe taking it seriously. So how to handle that kind of situation and how to communicate it properly so that they can also aware about that and they don't repeat the same activity.
Again, if we can say that in the right way, and if it actually comes from our heart, sincerely, we may be able to penetrate that person's heart and enable them to understand. There are some individuals, this is rare, but some people actually are very narcissistic. They just cannot think of anything beyond themselves. And there's a certain percentage of people in society who are like that, which includes certain politicians, whose names should not be mentioned. But if you encounter someone like that, it's very, very difficult to communicate in anyone with someone who just cannot see beyond themselves. Those people are rare, but unfortunately, that sometimes there are people like that, and it's very difficult to have close relationships with people like that. Most individuals, sometimes if they're not able to hear or accept your message, it could be because they're in a lot of pain themselves. And sometimes addressing their pain might enable them to heal enough that they can hear your pain. So it depends on the exact situation and the exact relationship. And again, sometimes couples get locked in that kind of a scenario, and sometimes professional counseling can help to untangle the intricacies that are causing that dynamic. There can be many different factors that cause that, but someone who's trained can learn to identify what the root of the blockage in communication is and help the couple unravel that.
I find that also sometimes if you're expressing that somebody did something and that hurt you, they can tend to shut it off because they're feeling bad about themselves or they're getting defensive, and they may like throw it back at you, well, you did this, or different scenarios. So sometimes some aspect of the feedback wheel, that when this happened, I felt that, and I told myself, you don't value me as a friend. And I was wondering, because I really value your friendship, if, we could talk about it sometime, or we could, do something to improve our friendship, just kind of letting them know that you want to have the relationship with them. You're not just there to point out their faults. Because it is hard when somebody, gets told that they've done something to hurt you. People respond in different ways. Mm.
Could you explain the characteristics and the traits of a narcissist person, now that you mentioned that? And also, what are the kind of damages that they can cause to our own mental health?
Very self-centered, very inconsiderate, can only hear one side of the story, generally very manipulative, can be abusive, can be very abusive. What can they do to you? They can undermine if you're in a close relationship with someone like that, you can be manipulated. If you're in a very close relationship, partnership, or marriage, you can be quite psychologically damaged, because in a close relationship, unfortunately, it's very easy to get your self-esteem lost when you get emotionally manipulated. There's things called gaslighting, which can't really describe that in a few minutes, but it can be very detrimental to receive that kind of behavior. It just undermines one's sense of self-worth. So associating with a narcissist, it's something you want to try and avoid. Sometimes they're in the workplace. If they're in your workplace, you just have to, difficult to work with, you want to work around them. Find a new job. We know an individual, got up in the corporate world, got a good job, his dream job, and then the person he was working with, his supervisor, was a complete narcissist. So he changed his job. Same thing happened again. So finally he got a job somewhere else. Those people with more sanity. So you can also Google symptoms of narcissists, how to deal with it. There's all kinds of information there. There's actually very good questions that are asked, and it's important in relationships and all relationships and in life, keep asking questions. Keep asking those kind of questions, because you're always looking, how can I improve? How can I improve my relationships? How can I improve my current situation? How can I improve my own consciousness? We always want to be looking for those answers. And a lot of those answers, if we read Prabhupada's books, you'll find them coming to the surface. And ultimately, it means chanting Hare Krishna and purifying our heart, because as we purify our heart by chanting, we'll become too receptive to things, people's places, information that may come to us, which is actually very relevant to us in our spiritual evolution. When you start to have that intent that I want to advance in Krishna consciousness, Krishna can start to reveal things in different ways. To wrap it up.
Did you have a follow-up on that? Mm.
So as a well-wisher for those people, is there any specific lecture or something which we can suggest them to hear so that they can, overcome their own self-centered approach to the, Krishna consciousness approach maybe?
I don't know.
It depends on the individual, the relationship, workplace, family, spouse. It's hard to say different situations.
In counseling, we try to find some leverage. First of all, they need to see how they're impacting other people. And very often their behaviors come from repeating something that they grew up with. And if they're in a relationship that they value, and they find out that people will not be able to stay in that relationship with them unless they change, and if the relationship's important enough to them, And if they realize that their behaviors are hurtful to others and that their kids are going to take it up, and you want your kids to, grow up experiencing this, then sometimes people can make that change when they understand the repercussions that it's going to have. And so unless they really buy into that leverage, it's not going to be so possible. So you have to find some leverage that makes them want to change. So I think we'll maybe wrap up the questions for now. And we're going to ask you all if you could just take, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and jot down whatever you learned in this course that was impactful to you. Then it's a little memory for you when you go home. You can look, oh, I learned this and this and this, and you can read it again later and look it up. So just for one moment, turn and look at the deities. Turn and look at the deities. All right. Now go back to your page and circle the one thing that stands out to you, that you wrote down of what you learned. Just circle the one thing that pops out as the most significant. Okay, so we're maybe just going to pass the mic around and you can just share one thing that you learned. it helps other people to realize, oh yeah, that was right, I learned that too. It just helps refresh everyone's memory. So I think we should just pass it, start and go this way and come back up.
Hare Krishna. For me, what stood out was the part of emotional regulation and making sure that when I'm going through some stressful time, I'm not taking shelter of my adaptive child, and I'm speaking from my higher self, so I can actually request to repair and not to complain.
She stuck 5 in her 1. Pretty good. Okay, go ahead. I'm not expecting that from everyone.
For me, it was self-esteem.
The self-esteem, yeah.
Taking the time out is actually not avoiding the situation. It's actually being kind to oneself and respecting others.
Being right is not the point. It doesn't matter. The relationship does.
I like the point where it says start with a request, not a complaint. Start with request, not complaint.
Okay. Turn your complaints into requests.
How I am enough and that I matter.
You matter a lot.
When we are triggered, we lose connection with our higher self.
Setting up mental boundaries. Boundaries.
For me, it was one of the 5 winning strategies, that is appreciating. So yes, that stood out for me.
For me, it was a part of feedback, not sandwich, feedback wheel, that just try to understand others' perspective. Although you might be right, but try to understand others.
Hearing at the back there, or is this, are you catching it back there, or do we need to speak up? How's it? I'm asking you people at the back, are you hearing what they're saying? Yeah, okay.
For me, it is appreciating each other. And one more thing is doing Krishna Bhakti can solve many problems.
I really like the thing you said, like Krishna doesn't want us to live just or be in relation. They want us to be in healthy and happy relationship as well.
Listen to understand.
In any provoking situation, we speak very palatable way.
Speak nicely, kindly, compassionately.
In any relationship, just think that you both are on the same team. No matter who loses. Either one of you lose, both lose.
Yeah.
Good one. If one loses, you both lose. Yeah.
Learn to speak what I want, and I'll start with a request, not a complaint.
Aha, nice.
Being right is actually a losing strategy, so I shouldn't be that way.
I really liked that dialogue you said, like even if we hurt our finger, Krishna feel that pain. And if we make other happy, Krishna feel that happiness. So I think even out of maybe gratitude, if we can create the happiness around us, that's the good thing. And it's always not like me versus you. We can be in one team, like me and other person, and then versus that situation where maybe we both are uncomfortable to resolve that issue. That's the best thing, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Effective communication, mutual respect, and trust, and willing to compromise.
Thank you.
So I've actually learned that I'm kind of an avoidant person when it comes to communicating, and I would like to open up more about that. So that it was a really good session. Thank you, and Hare Krishna.
Mataji, how does it feel to hear that?
I am so happy that this session was useful. But I already
Krishna's
know,
happy now.
Exactly. I'm more anxiously attached, and I learned that I need to keep patience with him. And also the different communication styles, like how can I approach him when the things get heated up. So yeah, that's something I learned, and we're gonna put these activities in practice, the appreciation ones.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Ignorance should not be there in a healthy relationship. What should not be there? Ignorance.
Ignorance, yeah. Mm.
Understanding each other's emotions and acting accordingly.
The section about the brain really stood out to me, with the amygdala that stores the traumatic memories from the childhood, and when triggered you go into adaptive child mode, which shuts down the prefrontal cortex and sends adrenaline and cortisol in the brain.
Nailed it.
Putting you in fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
That's huge, yeah.
Yeah,
Just being aware of it is a huge thing, actually, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, like I learned that you can't change others or like expect others to act according to your way. All you can do is control our response and like set boundaries for ourselves. Yeah.
Appreciate and request and not complain, and the relationship jujutsu where you kind of add something to what they say, and yeah, that's the two main things.
So what did you learn today? We studied jujitsu.
Mine was all exactly same as Prabhu. Always listen to understand them.
How to handle conflicts, like how to resolve them.
Hare Krishna. For me, it's like to fixing higher self means to become steady and devotional service of Krishna.
For me, is appreciating their values, appreciating them and applying their values into our own life.
I think for me, it was just like knowing that if you have boundaries, what others do won't really affect you as much because you're fixed in your values.
For me, it was to understand, to say how you are feeling rather than beating around the bush. There is a wheel that explains all the feeling. So instead of saying 1,000 things, just say the thing that is right and is exact.
Just forcing change will always be met with resistance.
All of the above.
Thank you.
All right, so with this, we come to an end. Before we start with anything, I would just like you all to please appreciate Partha and Uttama Prabhus. That was so incredible, very, very incredible. Okay. And there's one book which they wrote together with a group of devotees. This book is known as Heart and Soul Connections. This book is also available on Amazon and on their website. Yes, and there is a Kindle and an ebook version as well. I have the Kindle version. So this book actually talks more about any communication that you would be definitely needing in your relationship. And I've actually used those tools not just with my partner, but also in my services, meaning that you can use those skills at work, at school, or anywhere where you think it might be. Can you just maybe share a little more about this book?
We developed this book, our group, the Grihastha Vision Team. We looked at all the problems householders have. Actually, the group listed on big flip chart papers all the problems they face, and there was pages and pages and pages. Put them on the wall, and then they broke those problems into different categories and different areas. And then the group tried to understand what was the inappropriate attitude or paradigms that may have caused those problems, and perhaps what were the things from Srila Prabhupada's books that were not properly applied or misrepresented that may have caused the problems. And then we began to look at what are the principles and values from Srila Prabhupada's teachings that would rectify those problems and or prevent them from happening in the first place. And we came up with a list of 12 principles and values, which the book is based on. And the principles and values in the book, we show how they can practically be applied in your life. In the different chapters, yeah. So by leading a principled life, again, it's like in terms of your values, your principles and values become the map for your life, It helps you to navigate through the complexities and challenges that will come before all of us in our lives. And so it's a very valuable tool you can use to navigate all the challenges faced in the Grihastha ashram.
Yes, and this book is really amazing, and I wouldn't recommend the book unless I've read it. Even in Sankirtan, I distribute the books only the ones that I've read it. So please do buy a copy and just maybe start with a page or two and see how different your communication is with the person next to you, or anywhere, whichever dynamic you are in. Okay, so now we will start with certificates distribution. So just a little logistical disclaimer that so when I'm announcing the name, please come and take your certificates. And then where is Sarthak? So, and then as you can tell, Sarthak Prabhu is very serious. So if you don't obey him, he'll be very upset. So please make sure you follow his direction from where to stand for a group photograph. And can we have the drum rolls? And please encourage when we are announcing the names, you will also get a certificate. So let's just clap for the other person too. Yeah, you'll stay here. Sarthak, please guide them. Okay? All right. First is, can you guess the name? The groom to be. Please clap, Prabhus. Here. Next is Amala Harinam Das. I'll accept it on his behalf. He's busy playing Nadanga. Go ahead, I got yours. Okay. Guneev. The next one is Mother Pavitra Renu. She came all the way from States to attend this course. He'll get a certificate too. Ribo. Okay. Next one is Dhara. Next one is Jai Patel. I'll fix it. I'm sorry. I thought you were from Gujarat, so you must be Patel. Sorry. No, pardon my ignorance. Sorry. I'll change the certificate. Sorry. Next one is our favorite. Prabhu, keep the drum rolling. Okay. Next one is Jai Shri Radhe Mataji. We have to go and see her deities since Prabhu said she dresses up deities very nicely. And next is her husband, Jagannath Mishra Prabhu. Mother, stay back. Mother, stay back. Take one more picture. Next one is Mathan Prabhu. I have your certificate too, but where? I have your certificate too. Next one is Om Patel. You're Patel, right? Next one is Nihar Trivedi. Nihar just walked her spiritual ramp walk. That was very nice. Next is Durga. Next one is Aravind Das, who wants free prasadam from Govindas. Next one is Dinal Patel. Haribo. She did a lot of work in putting all, creating these nice questions. So, yes, and these certificates are actually designed by Dinal. Next one is Devanshi. It was her turn, so she left the Kartals, which Radhika Mangala is continuing. Next one is the eternal associate of Devanshi. Guess who? Radhika Mangala. Aka Manglu. Next one is Manaswi. And the next one is Ravi, Pavitra Renu Mataji's husband. He also came all the way from States with his wife to attend the seminar. Next one is everyone's friend Maitri. Okay, next one is Vatsal. It's a big thing because Vatsal decided not to be in the gift shop and instead use his services here. That's so nice. Next is Ajit. Asking so many nice, good questions. Next one is a devotee who is not from Ajay Devgan's family, Vishesh Devgan. Next one, please forgive me if I am pronouncing your name wrong and I've heard it wrong, but I felt this is what you said, Bantu. Haribo! So I was right. Okay. Next one is Himanshu, Hanuman of ISKCON Toronto. Jai, can you take Sarthak? Next one is our cameraman Sarthak. He likes to smile a lot. Revo! Next one is the spiritual rapper, Rohan. And the next one is Panditji of ISKCON Toronto, Nityananda Das. Next one is Mother Manu Vidya. Revo! For the next one, make sure drums are rolling very hard. Purnishravan Prabhu! Not that hard that we have to buy another mridanga. Okay. Next one is Siama, who led such a nice kirtan and I interrupted it. And the next one is Rupa. Next one, okay, let's guess who, this would show how much you were listening. So this person's partner appreciated him for turning her from a tomboy to a nice Vaishnavi. Avinash! No one was listening. Okay, I'll stop. Next one is Khushbu. Okay, stay back. Maybe you can take a picture. And then there is a nice devotee who wants to get the certificate very quickly so that she can go and do her services in the kitchen. And she's walking down the aisle. Her name is Shweta Kalara. And then is the backbone of all the programming in the temple is Monil Patel. And then is me. Yay.
Now she wants the real picture.
All right. So now we'll take a group picture, Sarthak. Okay, yes, yeah. And now there is the brahmachari who will use this knowledge for sure is, so Amala Harinam. Take a picture. Okay, now let's, Sarthak, please give us directions. Everybody come up here? Yes. All the beautiful people come fast, and the non-beautiful you can just maybe stay. No, I mean they will come fast. That's fine.
Haribol.
Couples can stand.